I will assume that, roll call. Lars,
Yes, I'm here.
Jeff,
Here.
Barbara,
Here.
and Robert, I'm here. And of course, we have one empty seat. We have minutes from December 10th. Does anybody have any thought or comment on them?
I looked those over and I would move to accept those minutes.
Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That was unanimous, Tori. So we don't have any public to make comments, so we'll move to the regular agenda, which would be the election of a chair and vice chair going forward. I will not seek and shall not accept the nomination of my party for the chairmanship of this committee. That's a quote from before you were born.
From another public art committee?
Yeah.
So
From an
I
artist.
nominate Jeff as chair. Does anybody have any other nominations?
Mhm.
Yeah.
There isn't anybody here.
Oh.
Recording in progress.
Oh, you mean nothing we did was recorded? Tori,
Yeah.
one bad mark.
No.
I don't have sound coming through the headphones, which means it may or may not be coming through the live stream or into Zoom, so I need to figure out if the
Time
sound is
out.
coming through. I think the problem is just with the headphones, so is somebody talking about the
Hello? Can you hear me? I'm,
showing sound in here, so it's going into the.
oh, good. Okay.
It's going into the live stream. I just don't know why I'm not hearing it here. So-
Shall we have faith?
But it is going in because I can see it.
Okay, starting at the top, the meeting will come to order. Roll call. Lars,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
Barbara,
Here.
Robert is here, and the fifth seat is empty. Can I have an approval of minutes for December 10th? Somebody make that motion?
Yeah, I so move.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 It's still unanimous. Comments from the public on items not on the agenda. There being no public either online or here, we'll presume that there are none of those. So on to the regular agenda.
Number 4.
Oh, statements of conflict of interest.
Hmm.
Anybody have anything different than before?
Nope.
No.
There are none. Thank you, Lars. So A on the regular agenda is the selection of a chair and vice chair going forward. What is the term? Every year? In January, we do this?
Typically, it's a year term. I mean, it's up to the committee on how long you want to have those terms go for.
If that's the precedent, it seems fine. Anybody got any other thought? There is no term limit, so.
No, there is not.
Oh, good.
So I nominate Jeff as chair. Did you want both nominations or separate votes?
We'll do separate votes. And then as this is an action item, we do need to go out for public comment as part of the procedure.
And how would we do that?
So when you have a nomination and you have a second, we'll go out for public comment and
Okay.
then we'll do the
Okay.
final vote.
It's just it's
okay.
a formality
Oh, I see.
in this case.
We need a second on Jeff's nomination or another nomination.
I would second Jeff's
Okay.
nomination as chair.
Is there any public comment on the nomination?
Not seeing anybody in the room and nobody in the Zoom channel, so public comment is closed.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr.
You
President.
can
Aye.
vote for yourself.
President.
Okay, do we have a nomination for vice chair?
No.
Anybody willing?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Robert for vice chair.
Okay.
God.
Second,
Sure, I'll second it.
would you like to be?
No, thank you.
Would you like to be?
No, thank you.
Okay,
No one asked us.
all right. It has been nominated and seconded that I be vice chair. Is there any public comment? 5 seconds of silence.
Not seeing anything in the room or on Zoom, so public comment is closed. Thank you for going through this tedious task, but it is part of the procedure.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Congrats, guys.
So simple. Usually it's so controversial.
I know.
This part of the meeting.
I know. Usually this is like the longest agenda
Well,
item.
it could be. This is the cool kids.
Okay. Thank you, committee. Fasten your seatbelts. By the way, Barbara, I do have some ideas that I'll hopefully share at the next meeting in regard to roles. So
Roll.
please take heart that
Oh my gosh.
I didn't nominate you as
He's
the
taking over. He's changing the
Oh.
Constitution.
yet.
Oh, I see. I see. Oh, thank you so much.
Actually, he's eliminating all of the members of the committee.
I'm going to be the secretary
Okay.
or the coffee girl.
Thank you, everyone, for your overwhelming support. Moving back to the regular agenda item letter B, the storm drain artwork call. Staff, do you have anything to update us on first?
Nothing from the staff end. I am still working with Eric from the Public Works Department to get kind of a more comprehensive map that, or a less comprehensive map, because the one that he has is of the entire city and there's about 3,000 drain hole covers, but that includes everything. It doesn't include the storm drains that we spoke about the last meeting. So when we have that available, I know this week the new Public Works director, or whatever that position is called now, did start. So Eric's kind of got some other things going on right now, but hopefully we'll try to have something back map-wise to the March meeting if possible, if not before then.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, me
Thank you,
too.
John. Comments from committee?
You go ahead.
I looked on the Windsor website this morning, and they have not started on this program. They, of course, have been focusing on the utility box thing, and we've talked about that and should go back to it. Before we make a commitment to it, in my mind, I know that they're on that path. I would like to see what such a thing looks like in its reality. There are other things I think that we should consider with our $20,000 or so budget, in particular murals. I kind of think that one significant mural has a lot more value than 20 relatively insignificant manhole covers. And I know that research has been done on available sites, and it's been a bit dismal, but nonetheless, I think that does more for the town and the sense of the town, and where that might be, we might, for $20,000, buy 4 murals if we had the space for it, and not to get our budget in the shape where we can't maintain what we need to maintain. I could see us doing a couple of murals with a, let's say, $5,000 consequential fund for each, as being an alternate direction to go from $250 or $500 manhole covers. I just wanted to throw those thoughts into the mix before we get too far down the road with it.
So who just to refresh our memory, who brought up the storm drain artwork?
Yeah.
as
I
a-
did.
You did,
Because-
as a potential project.
I did because I was looking at I was watching a meeting of the Windsor. Well, actually, it was the lady who came
Yeah.
and talked about the
Utility box.
Right.
utility boxes, said that Windsor was talking about that. And
Right.
so I went and looked at the minutes of their meeting and looked at the video of the meeting in which they were discussing it. And since they have filled all of the boxes except the Caltrans ones, and they're still struggling with Caltrans over whether they would be allowed, they were going off in this other direction. So I'd like to see how it works.
Where is this, what is the status of our utility box art? I mean, that, you mentioned the
Well,
the
there
cost
are-
of the manhole covers as opposed to other things, so,
Right, there are two, and we have not made a commitment about that.
right. And that's not on the agenda, actually, but we could kind of talk about it now. Is that appropriate? Because I wouldn't want to give that up
I think it's a
and just
corollary.
skip over it to go to the manhole covers without having some kind of activity going on with the utility boxes.
And excuse me,
Prioritizing.
before we get to that, I think that that map was going to show more than just storm drains as well, right? Weren't we also going to show utility boxes that might be available if down the road the PAC decides to go in that direction?
Didn't we see a map of the utility boxes?
Well, we've seen pictures of the
Yeah.
two that the city owns that are paintable.
Yeah,
Right, we had a discussion last meeting about who owns who, and which showed its limitations in terms of the numbers.
And in my input last time from my conversation with the guy on staff who manages their program in Windsor, he said he's 40 to 80 hours and 6 months into negotiation with Caltrans and does not see the end.
wow. Well, that's.
So we could do two, but
Mhm.
I mean, there's simply not the bandwidth and funding here to pursue Caltrans over that unless Tori wants to, in case Tori wants to do that in her spare time.
Well, we do, I'll just make one related comment, is with the city right now is in the middle of a grant process that's a Caltrans grant. And the consultant we're working with is, seems well versed at, how do you talk to Caltrans and where do you find money through, these projects? So this is different. It's not their scope for sure, but it's a resource. We could ask them, like, we've got this just little project, who's the art person at Caltrans we need to talk to or something. Maybe it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I think so, because that might open the door to Caltrans that we could leave open for future discussions of other things too. I mean, if we know somebody in high places, it might help us.
I'd be
in the
pleasantly
future.
surprised to know Caltrans had anybody
Me
that had
too.
anything to do with art.
They
but
might,
that
though.
would be
Yeah,
pleasant to find
but
out.
it's a big organization.
It is true. I guess to part of a past conversation we've had, at least one of the opinions I brought up was how Sebastopol, because of its relatively smaller size, should seek out art pieces that are either larger in scale or more unified across a larger area. So I would agree with you, Robert, on the fact there's only two utility boxes. Doesn't really have that kind of an impact, and it's just more, small things, a lot of small things in a small area.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at the Windsor website, they show all of their utility boxes, and I think there's 26 that they've painted, so
How
it
come-
becomes a thing.
Why does a little town like Windsor have that many utility boxes, I wonder?
Well, because they don't have a highway as their main drag.
Oh. Two-
Right.
Yeah,
We have two
state
state
highways.
highways.
Yeah.
So that influences
So-
the number of utility boxes in a city?
No, the ones that are owned by the city are owned by Caltrans.
Oh, I
That's what
get
it
it.
influences.
Oh, I see, because that's on their
Most of
property.
them, they're on the main
I
road
see.
and we don't have control of them.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I agree not to, dilute things with little stuff.
So if I could ask you, I'm sorry, Barbara, did you finish?
Including storm drains, which are aren't they flush with the
Yes,
ground? Yeah.
they are the
So the only
sidewalk,
way you can see them
is by looking down as you're walking.
or riding your bike.
Yes. Well, you're not riding your bike on the sidewalk. You're
Some
riding
people
in the
do.
bike
Right.
lane, so you're not.
Well,
gonna
then
see them that
nobody's
way
really
either.
seeing them unless you're driving, and you're supposed to have your eyes on the road.
Right, so they're not, no, they're just walking, and if we did that, in theory, we would just do ones in the major walking thoroughfare areas.
Do we have an estimate of how many that is?
Well, okay, so I'm going to pause this there because John and staff, again, as he said at the beginning, he's going to be meeting with Eric to come up with a map. I think we'd have better information if we waited for that map, and, we could discuss it a little more intelligently.
Well, just like out of curiosity, is there a guesstimate on how many manhole covers there are in the city owned, just like a,
800.
The map that they have is inclusive of all all covers, so that could be the 6 to 8 inch sewer
Oh.
drain cover. It's not a specific number for the manholes set
I see.
aside, so we still have to. I'm still working with Eric to get that number
I just thought
to the
maybe-
storm drain ones rather than every kind of cover into.
So they need to be
Just
the
wait.
3-foot concrete ones.
Correct.
Not the metal ones.
Right.
Well,
Well-
so I'll just say, like, I'm hearing doubt as to whether this is a worthwhile project. So why should we have John and Eric put together this map and spend their time if we don't want to do it? I
Well-
would just
Yeah.
ask that question.
Well,
I second that.
I'm not saying I don't want to do it. I mean, we haven't had a thorough enough discussion in my mind, to bring it to a vote, although it could if a member wanted to make that motion. But I don't really know. I mean, if we're just going on hearsay or making estimations on what's available, then I'd just like to be able to have a more intelligent
Yeah.
knowledge of it.
yeah, I would like it to stay on our radar, both to see if Windsor actually does it and to see where we could put it, and are they close enough along Main Street that it would make cogent sense, and without the map, we don't know that.
Right. But so do we run into a Caltrans issue here too? If there's concrete, lids on Main Street, that's a highway. It's their right of way, would we have the same issue?
When you're talking about just,
Likely, I would assume.
Yeah,
I'd
so
have to
to me,
double check.
like, I don't
So we
think,
wouldn't even be able to do those on either of the highways?
I don't know.
Because they own the sidewalk?
Correct.
oh, they own the sidewalk. I thought they
the
just
right,
own the
the
road.
right of way of the highway include, it's
Oh,
not
I
just the
see,
road.
I see, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then this
So-
is hopeless, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we did discuss at the last meeting, some of the major areas that are outside of Caltrans right of way. So, by Ives Park, some of the stuff down, if there's anything down Florence Avenue where there's a lot of artwork already. Some of the other city-owned streets, we could look at that. If
That
there's a
makes sense.
list of streets that the PAC could provide to staff, that way we're not giving you a map of the entire city. We can kind of focus
Yeah.
Yeah.
the effort
So-
down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
a good
on
idea.
that note, I'd like to bring that up again when we get down to the site inventory, F, in terms of the mapping
Okay.
piece. I wanted to also mention that some of you may recall, in terms of the storm drains in the past, there were not only school groups, but I think there were also some environmental groups that were working with Salmon, and they had phrasing and symbology painted on storm drains to let people know you shouldn't be pouring anything that could potentially be toxic or contaminate any of the water sources going into those drop inlets, for example. So I'm just saying, in the past, there has been things painted on or near some of those drains.
Were any of them of artistic merit, or were they all information?
They're all pretty uniform, same
Uh-huh.
color, et
That-
cetera.
That might be a nice project, though. To actually tie it into something environmental, not just art, but to have a message socially. And
Yeah.
those groups, they still exist that might want to get involved. But I really appreciate John's mentioning of Ives and Florence Avenue, because those are cool places to increase the art availability for people to enjoy, because
Yeah,
they're
that could be
already
fun.
there. Yeah. So if we can narrow it down, keep narrowing it down to where it has more relevance, that might be a good idea. In fact, near schools and stuff too, if there's going to be a message about an environmental positive impact. Good deal. I think it's a cool idea.
So if right now, before this discussion, John and Eric were going to work on the maps, or should we today
Yeah.
give them more direction, or we next 2 months from now we give them more
Yeah.
direction? Or?
It's a good idea.
Well,
Let's,
I think that what we're
Bye.
talking about, to me, let's talk about the map just covering the highly walked areas that are not Caltrans adjacent.
it might take more work to narrow it down though.
I would look to you guys
Yeah.
to define that area
I do too.
rather
Well,
than.
Florence, Ives
Well,
Park, Regal
But I
Park.
think getting the map is probably, a one push of the button. Trying to segregate things is another one. So maybe we'll just get the map.
Okay.
So Regal is outside of city limits. That's a county
That's
owned.
right,
Okay.
that's right.
I'm thinking maybe High Street. That's in front of
By
the
the
art
art
center
center.
there.
Library Arts Center, yes. But, and of course, that's Ives Park adjacent.
Correct. Yeah.
Another thought there is that there is the self-guided walking paths, trails,
Right.
perhaps to take those streets into consideration if those are walkways, streets
Oh, that's a good idea.
that people might be making more frequently.
Mhm.
That might make some sense to look at storm drains along those streets.
So I can start with these. If you guys have additional streets that come up after this meeting or throughout, you can send them to me individually, just not as the entire group. And then, as we're not meeting in February, I will work with Eric through the month, in the month of February, to try to have some sort of map put together by our March meeting. And then we can go from there if that works.
I would add the Laguna Parkway to that list.
Okay.
I'd also add Covert to that.
So I have a question though, John, of the city. There isn't a map of this already or an inventory of those storm drain covers just for the
Yes,
city?
there's a large, like 4 foot by 4 foot map that's about 75 years old and is kind of falling apart and is not in a condition that we can scan it. So that's what Eric and I are, that he's trying to get a digital or make a digital version of it to update it a little bit more. So
Well, I would say that's to the city council, that the public art committee is doing them a favor in updating that map and actually, circulating something that does reveal the inventory of manhole covers.
You are so right.
In other words, we're indispensable in a number of ways.
so Laguna Parkway, and then what was the other street?
Covert.
Covert.
And I'd
for
throw
all of
Pleasant Hill between Bodega and Covert in to that bunch as well, for now.
I
Not
just,
to overwhelm
And
you, John, at
Bodega
this
is a
point.
city. Bodega is not Caltrans from,
From Main Street going west.
right, so
Is
that,
that right?
yeah. Oh, well, so that's a good
That's definitely, it
area,
should be in
city in
there.
front of the
I-
library and.
So certainly up to High Street and then across High Street to the park, that,
And you could say then the seniors, towards the senior center, the other way too.
yes?
No
High
high,
Street, yep, all the way across High Street from
yeah.
the
I'm
senior
gonna-
center to the art center.
I will put together a couple maps, do my best, send them out to the pack and get your input.
We'll send back a markup.
Yeah.
and I'm going to advocate that all of them show up because I'm just getting this idea that we're being exclusive, that they're only going to be where people already see art. What about all the people that don't get to see art because they don't live in those places that are frequented by
Well,
artwork?
I mean,
I think it should be to pedestrian focus. So what are
Yeah.
the best
Okay, well,
pedestrian
that
areas
makes sense.
Right,
that
and it
are
would
in
be a-
Caltrans?
and it would be a long-term program. We would pick something to start with and see what kind of community reaction we get to it, and whether we want to keep going.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, any other concluding comments on 5B?
Can I just ask, so 5F site inventory is about potential art sites in general, is that, so Robert brought up murals, so we can just put that over into that agenda item? Okay,
Sure.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for asking.
thanks.
Yep. All right then, so we're going to move on to 5C, bench update at the Johnson Art Piece site. Is that you, Robert?
Yeah, I went to the board meeting at the Sturgeon's Mill, and they agreed to donate the wood, and the president of the board, Tom Schaefer, agreed to build the bench. He said he hasn't built one in a year and kind of looks forward to it, so we went and looked at slabs and chose 2 3-inch thick redwood slabs that are enough to make the bench 6 feet long. And each of those was marked at $800. So their donation is
Wow.
not inconsequential.
Mhm.
And when it's done and we're going to install it, and I would encourage Tori and Kendra to come along with the Toyon trees at the same time and get that whole thing done. We need to, and I will take this on, but we need to set 4 1-foot square concrete tiles in the ground level for the legs to sit on so that they're not in contact with the dirt.
Mhm.
And there is a maintenance component to this. It should have Thompson water seal once a year. There is actually in that context a maintenance schedule which Tori and Kendra never told us in terms of time, but the sculpture needs to be recoated on some schedule, like 3 years probably, and what product is used we need to know, and where city services is about doing those things. Now, obviously, the bench could be allowed to go gray by not doing that, and it probably will eventually anyway, and that's not the worst thing. The mill has a branding iron, and they will brand the bench on the front of the back, because the back of the back will be up against the fence and wouldn't be visible. So
What are they going to brand?
it'll say Sturgeon's, donated by Sturgeon's
Oh,
Mill.
oh, that's
It's a
nice.
Sturgeon's Mill brand.
Oh, I see, I
And,
see.
You know,
Mhm.
so people should know about their generosity, and we should give the Times, the PD isn't going to pay any attention, but the Times should acknowledge that,
Oh, yeah.
as well as the what's going on in Sebastopol column and something in the city newsletter when this happens.
Mhm.
So would it happen?
I don't have a timeline.
Okay, but we have a date for an opening.
We do, and I
When is
told
it? Oh, May
Tom
3rd.
about that, and we would like to have the bench before the April date.
That, which would be great, but it could also, that could be the whole PR is about the opening and the people who've been part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
When, could you refresh my memory about that opening date? I had May 3rd.
That's for, May 3rd is the Ned Con,
Oh, that's right.
and
Excuse me.
April
5th.
5th.
April
yeah,
5th is the,
is
oh,
the Bruce
It's the
Johnson.
Johnson.
Yeah.
okay, good.
So just to clarify again, Robert, so you said at this point in time, there's no timeline on the bench in terms
Well,
of its construction or installation.
I will be in touch with Tom and make sure that he's up to date about April 5th being a deadline we would like to meet. Can't push him, but that we would like to be able to get it installed by then so that they also can come to the dedication and have some acknowledgement.
Perfect.
I do also want to check with regional parks to make sure that locating another bench or new bench on their property is okay as well.
Yeah, that's
Because
right,
it
it's
is,
county.
even though it is it's within city limits, it is not owned by the city.
And what process did you wish to use?
I will reach out to the person that we've been in contact with about the art piece component. I don't
I
see a
can't
huge
imagine
issue,
it's
but
an issue.
yeah,
You
but
never
they may
know.
have some sort of,
We had, after
requirement.
all, asked the Johnson Estate if they had a bench, and if they had, then it would be part of the sculpture. It's hardly any different.
Did you ask them that?
I did, but they didn't have.
Oh, they didn't have one.
They didn't have any wood to use for it.
Okay, may I ask a couple of questions about the sculpture openings? Is that appropriate?
Just a
it's not on
moment.
the-
Just a moment. Yeah, we
Okay.
are going to get to that.
Oh.
But before we get to that, just want to make sure there's no other comments about the bench or the bench process. It sounds like we really need to make sure the county is going to give us the thumbs up there.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't want to have to
no.
have that bench built and constructed and ready to go, and then regional park say, sorry,
Yeah,
can't do
that's
it.
also respectful.
So out of respect for your schedule, how fast do you think you can call them?
I will try to get a hold of them either this week or next week and keep the pack up to date as much as possible.
Great. Thank you,
And
John.
Hopefully, if we do hear something, if it's not a message that is sent out to the group, I can do it as part of the update for our March meeting. I know that's pushing it a little late, but
Well, I think you should tell Robert so he can.
yeah,
tell.
no, absolutely.
That's all we need.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Just so you can green light Tom, and so
Right.
he's not sitting on his thumbs. And
Yeah,
Well, I'm going to have faith that the county isn't going to say no.
yeah,
well, yeah, but you
sounds like it
never
would
know.
go that direction for
If
sure.
they do, we just put it over in the Hot Mung parking lot and
Yeah.
look across at the sculpture.
Bring it
Yeah.
in here.
But, I mean, the city has a bench that has been there, and then we moved it off of there, and then we moved it back onto there,
Right.
and nobody was asking.
Well, you never know. I just better not, never mind.
Okay, so thank you, Robert, for your
Mhm, that's
legwork
cool
with
to
that.
have that donation.
So, yeah, as some of you probably read in our email interactions, there was a question that Robert cleverly brought up for us because we're now moving to alternating months, that with the Johnson opening coming up on April 5th, we perhaps might need to form a subcommittee of two to do some of the legwork around that opening.
It's like,
So we wanted to bring that up for discussion. Staff, do you have anything you want to say about that first, though?
No, I would just say yes. So, and I can cover it more in depth in the department update. But yes, we are kind of rotating our months. We had long discussions about this last year. So we are doing a every other month meeting, unless there's the need to have a special meeting in between there that we can schedule. We just need to make sure that the room is available and calendars line up appropriately. But as far as doing kind of things on those off months, I did recommend to the committee if you wanted to create an ad hoc or a subcommittee of 2 members to kind of do some of the legwork on some of these items. That way, things can still move forward. You can get projects done because you're not violating the Brown Act for a quorum of people. That can be a possibility as we kind of move forward with this new meeting schedule. So that was kind of my recommendation to the committee, and up to if you guys have questions on how that works.
Well,
I'm
can
happy
I
to-
ask a couple of questions here? The only one of these we've done was the Michael McGinnis piece.
Mhm.
There was no food and there was no music.
there was food.
There was?
Oh, yeah, there was, because the Friends of the Library helped pay for it.
Ah,
I remember
It
that.
was against the back thing. And I've got a lot of photos from that.
well, food is a thing and an issue. I mean, we need a microphone and a speaker thing, something. And to get the mayor or the vice mayor or somebody to agree to come and speak on behalf of the city. And then I assume that Tori or Kendra would speak on behalf of their father. But what else is there to it besides publicity?
Well, okay, all right, since I seem to be enjoying event things, we also, this is back to back, by the way. We've got two major openings within a month of each other. So getting to John's idea of a subcommittee or a special meeting in between these meetings, we need to do one or the other, that's for sure. But also, I'm remembering that Greg, what's his name, was here
Sarah.
on May 3rd, no?
Oh,
Greg,
Bruce, yeah.
with the great
Ned's guy.
rancher. No, Greg, I can't remember. He was from
Greg
Gregory.
Pagel.
Right, Pagel. And I know him, and he was talking about the Great Rancheria getting involved in the Ned Con opening with
Right.
with a real ritual because of that property, which I think is an incredibly wonderful idea to get that whole thing going with the Indian community. So I'm just thinking that if we want these to be dynamic and successful and the outreach is well done, we need to do it now, and we need some real person power and commitment to do it. And I'm thinking maybe we do need a meeting with all of us in February, since this is so close, rather than waiting until March, because April 5th, I mean, that gives us just a little bit of a month, and even an ad hoc committee.
Well, a committee would need to design it and present it at the March meeting in a
Well,
form
that's
that's
too
ready
late.
to go, because the city council doesn't want us to meet in February.
Well, unless it were a meeting that was to our advantage to actually meet in February. Didn't you say there was some flexibility, though, in a meeting in between?
Right. Could we have a
month?
special meeting in the fireside room?
Well, we still have to make it a public meeting in this format and context. So the meeting itself, I mean, the February 11th meeting, we do have this room. I mean, Tuesdays are our normal meeting days. It's just making sure that the room is available at that time. And then also that, staff is available, and then also the
Yeah, I don't
folks are
think
available.
that's necessary. I think a subcommittee is necessary, and if two people can really put together all the steps, you could reach out to one other member of the committee even without violation.
That we're watching the building. I hope
Excuse
they don't
me,
take down those nests again.
Oh, power washing the swallows. Yikes.
Well, okay.
So I just think it's even just more efficient. Like, we come here and we talk back and forth. If we come in March with a subcommittee full, marching orders, I think it could work. But that's my opinion.
Well, my opinion is that we do both, that we have an ad hoc committee and we meet on February 11th if possible. But definitely an ad hoc, or whatever you want to call it, committee, an event committee. We have to do that like now.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we discussed in the past. I've pretty much blocked out this Tuesday every month.
Me too.
So I would make myself available to meet this basically same Tuesday in February to discuss the opening. And I think once we have the imprint for the Johnson opening, then we basically have the imprint for the Ned Con opening. It's just who you're inviting and the scheduling of things.
Unless the Great Rancheria is going to be a real player in that May 3rd opening, which isn't.
Well, that's what I mean when I say except for the scheduling of, the speakers or whatever is happening during the opening.
And
Yeah,
didn't
because-
Gregory say that he was responsible for
Yeah,
He's
that?
but
the
that
point man
means,
on that, right.
that means rejuvenating that contact with Gregory.
Gregory also said
Well,
that
that's
he was working on an invite.
Why don't I contact Gregory and find out what's going on with him and the
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
community?
Yeah, you said you had his information,
No,
contact
well, I
information.
do I can find it.
I think we need another.
I can send it to you, Barbara.
Okay.
But
I
yeah,
worked with him on the White Family Sculpture Foundation.
So we're looking for volunteers for the ad hoc committee. And if so, can people meet on Tuesday, February 11th?
So this is a subcommittee of two, right?
Yes.
That's what we're forming here.
I'll be happy to
That's
work
correct.
on that committee.
So I'm volunteering.
I am too.
You guys are it.
And I can meet on February 11th.
Okay,
Of course,
sounds
you can
good.
talk by phone or
Yeah.
email and all, whatever.
So I'll email you and decide where we want to meet.
Okay, so do we have a time on the 5th and a time on the 3rd? Because I'm going to do a save the date to the media now so that we can get some interest going.
We don't have a time set yet.
Okay. Is that possible to do today or not?
Chair, before we get too far, since you
Yes,
did
sir.
create a subcommittee of two, can you formally make a motion and a second and then we'll take?
Yes.
I move that we have a subcommittee to design and coordinate the two sculpture opening events, and that Jeff and Barbara be the members of that committee. That do the job?
Yes, thank you.
I'll second that.
I thought you would.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Any discussion about that?
And before we do that, public comment, just
Public comment about that motion?
not seeing anybody in the room or on Zoom.
Thank you so
I'll-
much.
I'll just add a comment, which is the subcommittee, as far as I understand it, cannot be more than two of this committee, but it can include other people. So
Yes.
Gregory Pagel can
Yeah,
come to
good.
your meeting and help you plan this. He's
Okay, good.
totally
Well, yeah, we
wanting to
would
do
need them.
that.
And their sisters.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Okay,
right.
good.
And then one final thing, as far as if the committee would like to, the subcommittee would like to send out updates to the rest of the public arts group, that does need to come to staff first, and then we can issue that out to the rest of the board.
And would that be you, John?
Yes.
Okay, good. So any communications that Jeff and I come up with, potential dates or, ideas go to you first? And
Yeah,
then-
if you want to send it out to the rest of the group, it has to
that's
come
great.
from
That's easy.
city staff.
Do
So,
you need me to send you contact information for Tori and Kendra?
Yes. And Lars is going to send me Greg's contact, but I just wanted to.
With that, excuse me, I need to pause there and then we'll get the rest of your comment. Can we go ahead and vote on this
Oh.
motion since we have a live motion on
Yeah.
the floor?
Committee Member Harris,
Say
what's your
aye.
vote?
Oh, to
Say,
what?
say
On the
aye.
subcommittee.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I was writing something about Greg.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Committee Member Langberg
Aye.
and Vice Chair Brent
Aye.
and Chair Stucker.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara, did you need to
I did. I
follow up?
wanted to ask Lars, because I kind of, my mind sort of heard you say something about a contact with Caltrans via some other committee or something.
That was, related to the manhole covers or
Okay.
that whole thing.
Is that something you could pursue for us, is to actually see if there is a art contact with Caltrans,
Mhm.
no matter where that person's housed?
I will send you the name and phone number of the guy in Windsor who is doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you had access in a different way,
Yeah.
didn't you? Because that may be very effective for us to actually find out that person and
Mhm.
have some communication with them, and I'd be happy to follow up
Okay.
with that.
Sure.
Because that's sort of like, it's like, never mind, but that has some great potential, I
It
think.
sure does, yeah.
And especially if they're an advocate for the arts and they're kind of stuck behind that bureaucracy, they might be willing to be more.
Step up.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally. Yep.
so that, I'd appreciate that. Does that
Okay.
have to go through John first, though?
No.
That
Not if I
kind of
don't tell him.
information? No.
Okay. All right. Moving on to 5D as this hurricane approaches behind us. North entry process. I believe I asked to have this agendized again. Because even though we not really actively in a budget that might give us all the monies we might be looking for, we still do have a balance, as was discussed at our last meeting.
Mhm.
And this is something we still definitely want to keep on the front burner. So I wanted to open this up for discussion from members. Again, I was out of the country on the at the, excuse me, I think the October meeting where this was discussed. So
I think just quickly from staff's point of view, they're on the north side of town. There are very few publicly owned parcels. Most of them are privately owned. So finding a location might be a little bit more difficult than the southeast and west locations have been. I know I've mentioned this a couple times, but in the future, there is hopefully a plan to reconfigure the Covert Lane and Highway 116 intersection. I think the best recommendation that I've heard so far is some sort of a roundabout, and potentially having an art piece in the center of the roundabout. Not only is a possible location, but is pretty common in some roundabouts because it deters people from just kind of driving through them, which does happen. So,
Is there a reason that we couldn't put such a sculpture on private property with an appropriate right-of-way or lease or whatever the city wanted?
yeah, I believe you could. It would likely be similar to some sort of contract that we kind of went through with regional parks for the Bruce
Yeah.
Johnson.
I mean, Riley
piece.
Street would be the obvious.
Yeah. But it would, the only,
Not Riley Street, what am I saying?
the O'Reilly Center or the
Yeah,
O'Reilly.
O'Reilly.
Yeah,
O'Reilly,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's
Excuse me.
great. That'd be great.
Right, they have a median.
Yeah. Correct. The only thing with that is obviously property ownership changes over time. And I don't know what the process would be if a new person were to come in and wanted to
Well,
remove that. I mean, we
Speaking
would,
with my land trust hat on, when you put an easement on a property, it's permanent. That's
correct.
that.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
But it would be, that property owner will have to be amenable to an easement on their property. So
When property
through that.
changes hands and there's an easement, that's in the prelim.
correct.
And that's when a property owner can say something about it, but they cannot remove it.
Correct. Yeah.
But
Some property owners don't like to put easements on their property.
Well,
so
I
I'm
understand.
just-
We would have to
yeah.
ask. for
Correct.
They're kind of cool. people.
what's the,
Artists.
even if the roundabout was a viable idea moving forward, it's what, 5 to 10
Oh, at
years before it
least.
would actually happen?
It's possible that it could be a little bit sooner than that. I know that the last time that I had, when Carrie and I had some discussions with the city's traffic engineer, there was kind of a threshold as far as some development projects coming in town that we've approved over the last few years of triggering the need to have that intersection changed or so that one, a few blocks down the Murphy and Healdsburg intersection is another one. And then the third one, and these three intersections are in our general plan as far as, traffic mediation needing to come in the future, is on the south end of town just by Furcrest Market. That one is kind of, it's far enough down. I don't think there's significant impact to trigger anything on that one, but definitely the Healdsburg and Murphy, and then the Covert and Healdsburg intersection there are hopefully possibly coming to a triggering of, some work that needs to be done on those because either of safety or of the amount of traffic flow that is now coming through there is a lot more than it was in the past. So, Caltrans is also, as Lars mentioned, as part of the grant component for the downtown grant, they're looking at upgrading their service areas to be more vehicle pedestrian friendly, and really looking at high injury network stuff to reduce the amount of accidents that happen on their roadways. So those two issues coming together might allow us to push that type of improvement on those two intersections sooner rather than later.
That's good.
can you also speak to the future of that proposed roundabout over there near Ives, across from Parkside School, with the triangle. There's a little bit of a triangle there. Trying to remember the names of those streets.
On Willow?
Washington.
Willow and Jewel. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
Willow
okay.
and Jewel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that is, I don't believe there's any initial upgrades to that until that was part of the Calder Creek Naturalization Project that went to City Council a few years ago, was looking at reconstructing that intersection there and adding some more, if I remember correctly, some more kind of real estate into the park and kind of making that intersection more of a slanted T intersection rather than what it is right now, which is not really feasible at all.
The park remodeling plan that the city bought for $50,000 and approved
Mhm.
had that triangle incorporated into Ives Park and the curved street that separates it eliminated.
Yeah,
And yet they repaved it.
Well,
Just saying.
Well, yeah, because they probably needed to repave it, but is that constituting our focus upon the north entrance sculpture? That location and even the Murphy Avenue 116 well, I guess that's closer to north. But I mean, are we focusing upon north entry sites? Or are we actually going out to?
We
other-
are, because we're trying to do each entry into the
Right,
city.
so that,
That's the missing one. So
yeah, I know that, but I mean, so now we're talking about near Ives Park, does that qualify as a north entry?
No.
No.
potential?
No,
Okay,
sorry.
that's- I just
And no,
clarify.
didn't mean to distract. It was just a roundabout discussion.
Okay,
But going back to the north entry
Yeah.
then, certainly the promise of a potential future roundabout at Covert at 116 would not prevent us from pursuing the possibility of securing an easement on private property,
Yeah,
because
neat.
we would still have potentially other opportunities to put public art in roundabouts.
Or move it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, good point. So I think this is something we should continue to agendize.
I do too.
So we can continue to look at.
And also, that may bring us back to the amount of money we have. I mean, we're talking about manhole covers and we're talking about utility things and all that, but maybe we ought to save our $22,000 for that north entry site without too many other distractions that might erode that pot of money, no matter, because we don't have any idea how we're going to add to it.
That is a discussion which would have to be agendized. We have touched on that before.
I know, but
Um,
maybe should be our focus, and whether we wait for the site or not, we don't want to lose that. We don't want to start spending that money on other things and then not have it when this comes to fruition.
And the argument that can be made that when there is a project that does have to pay the 1%, it would probably be enough for a sculpture, and that may be 5 years from now, and that would have us doing nothing for that period of time.
Yeah, you're right about that too. That's true, but I just don't want to start spending nickel and diming that $22,000 and then not having enough for something really significant.
This is
That's just an
clear.
idea.
I'd like to think the PAC balance earns interest, or at least some kind of COLA, or both.
Wow, oh, does it though?
I'd like to
Does it have its own
think.
little CD?
I don't know anybody in the room really knows that, but
Money market?
I believe that city council is skimming the interest.
Oh, of not the whole thing. We'll pay you guys back.
Yeah,
That-
really. Okay, Robert, we're gonna move past that one. John, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I guess the only other thing that I would add for the north location is maybe it's, and this could be a future agenda item, but finding a area of the north part of town that would make sense for art in that, like visually where it makes sense, where, depending on the size of what you guys would be looking at. I mean, the last thing you want to do is have a location in mind and then all the art pieces that obviously you're going to review them. All the art pieces that come in are just way too large to fit on that site, and then you have to, either redo the call or redo a location. So maybe having a general kind of area of where the committee is thinking of where that art piece, could be placed, would be beneficial to help, if I or any of the other people beyond me have development projects or something like that, and we have a location mentioned, we can say, hey, the PAC has identified a site close by that is looking at doing some sort of art piece. Would you be willing to kind of save a spot in the future or something like that? Because it is mostly private property up there, and it just could help future development of if those properties do turn over and start developing into something different. So
John, could I ask you, do you know if the status of that O'Reilly property? That whole place seems pretty empty.
the two parcels in the back,
Well, that I knew the development, right?
correct, yes.
But the actual existed building, is there a plan for that? Or do you know anything about it?
There's nothing new that's being proposed in there. I believe that's mostly office and then some other.
Because it's almost empty all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a precious piece of property. I'm just surprised that it hasn't been.
Yeah, it's definitely a place that could be redeveloped, and maybe after the two parcels in the back get some traction and homes get built there, that the owner that has that front property thinks about redeveloping it. We have had discussions in the past with the owner of the Redwood Marketplace in looking at eventually trying to redevelop that site into some different opportunities on the north end of town. So there's definitely, unfortunately, the old CVS building is still up there, kind of sitting away. And
But that O'Reilly place, well, that's a real obvious.
Yeah. One site we looked at up there was also it could be another terminus of a trail. So like we're doing with the Bruce Johnson sculpture, there is little parcels that might be county owned, but they're right as the trail.
The charter school owns a parcel that comes out to
Well, there's
116 there.
As I recall, there is one small sliver that's owned by the city, is it not?
I don't remember it was city or
Right-
county, but it
Right
was.
by that entrance.
by the entry there,
Yes. Because it was on our map.
Yeah, but when we looked at that area with Carrie, she identified it's either city or county, but it was just a unusable parcel otherwise. is what it
correct.
looked
Yeah,
like.
it's a small triangle.
Like it would be potentially a good site.
I'll have to look. I know that there was part of that that area there that was the original O'Reilly, and then when the charter school came in, there were some access easements that were granted across to build the driveway into that charter school there. So there's probably some old language and easements for those small little parcels.
So with this in mind, since we're going to continue this on our agenda, will you have the photographs and/or maps that we visited in the past at hand? So that
I think
could
we
see
just-
those again?
I think we just did it as a live thing, like Carrie just had the Google
Yeah.
map or the city map,
did.
and it was us kind of saying it could be this, it could be that. That's my memory of it. Well, that's true. Yeah.
And that was likely before I was either
Yeah.
I
part of the
think so.
PAC or
No, I
Coming to
remember
these meetings
are
regularly.
looking at it. And we also mentioned that if O'Reilly still owned part of that easement, that they would very possibly be agreeable in helping us because they're kind of arts-oriented entity anyway. So we wouldn't want to give up that possibility of their being included and at least asking for participation. I think that'd be a neat place to have.
Yeah, and it could be advantageous
sculpture.
to secure an easement on the site before it was sold to another
Yeah,
owner.
right. Yeah,
With the
because it's in perpetuity, you said.
Yeah. Okay. Other comments on the north entry? Okay. So moving on to 5E, then city signage and sculpture signage.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of an update. So I was able to reach out to DNS Awards, who have done our signage in the past. I asked them a couple things. First off, the possibility of doing the QR code kind of etching into their signage for us if we move forward with the Bruce Johnson one and then any other signage going forward. They said that they haven't done it yet, but they think that it would be possible. It might just be something that they need to, test out a few times to make sure that it's, the etching machine is doing it correctly. And as what the person told me, as far as like the size of the material and all of that kind of stuff, the previous ones that we had done were the 6x6 stainless steel. She had mentioned that when those were requested by the city, they had that stainless steel in stock, as it was part of a previous project that didn't move forward, so they had it available. If there's anything larger or different sizes or thickness or anything like that, it could come down to an issue of availability, unless there was, if either any of the members of the board had, a contact to get some sort of stainless steel or whatever the material you wanted to use to donate to the award place that they could do the etching. It would come with a cost, but you wouldn't have to wait, months for the material to come in. I know you're likely the person that has that contact information. So that is a possibility. Vice Chair Brent is who I was looking at. But
I had a lot of metal work done by Reliable Hardware and Steel for the construction of the Art Center.
okay, so yeah, so
I
if that is something that is available to use, then they would have no issue, printing out or etching into that material. There is just, the associated cost with it. And it really, I tried to get a estimate as to, is it based off of number? Is it based off of font? Is it size or whatever? And she said it really comes down to how much etching and the prep work that needs to go into getting the metal ready to accept that etching, and then the coating that goes on top of it. So it's really hard to know. But if we have, a rough idea, or if we have a template for them, they can kind of get a.
Well, at the last meeting, we talked about doing them 8x8. And the other question of which was particularly important was the stake to hold it appropriately that's driven into the ground. Did you ask them about that?
I did not ask them about that. I don't think that they would be the ones to provide that unless it was available. I mean, typically they're just kind of a plaque and, simple kind of signage award stuff, not full on mounting material.
Okay, I will try and go to Reliable and chat with my old buddy, the owner, and doodle some ideas about that.
Good, because I think when we were talking about staking them, they weren't all going to require that treatment of a stake. Some could be affixed to the building or wherever
Well,
they
I was
were.
looking for uniformity,
Well,
in which case
Yeah.
all four of them on an identical stake, because there's dirt around each of them.
So we're
Yeah.
talking about the four entries being uniform.
Yeah,
Right.
that we would have all four done
I can
at
see.
once, and we would have one in stock for the north entrance when it happens.
I can see, though, that the consistency could be the font, the material, the size and the content. But I would advocate that we may think of having the installation be possibly different if that's the most appropriate thing to do. In other words, the stake, I don't think the uniformity of having a stake is as important as what they look like as a sign. And because sometimes it just may be more appropriate not to have a stake. I think it
Yeah.
depends on the piece and where it is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. I think as long as the sign itself
Yeah,
is consistent with all four sides, yeah, whether it's on a stake or mounted in another appropriate place that's easily seen by visitors, appreciators, that's the most important thing to me, in my mind.
it
Well,
would be a
but
cohesion.
the Ned Kahn and the Bruce Johnson are in a field, more or less, right?
Yep.
So if it's not a stake, we talked about the botanical identifier, little plaques you see in the botanical gardens, right? It's either that or it's on a post. So I agree with sort of the way Robert said it. Those two are like that. The one at the library also, even though it could go on the wall there, it could be on the stake down low and you'd still see it. And then it makes all the fabrication and everything easier.
That's true too.
Another consideration in my mind is also potential vandalism. I mean, would one kind of sign, location, or mount be more of an invitation to potential damage than another? Just a thought.
Yeah, you can't control that really.
We've kind of been down that road before, but still,
It's hard.
I mean, whether it's on a wall or on a piece or next to the piece versus on a stake somewhere. So,
And happily, we haven't had that problem at CSG, so.
true.
Not in a while.
Well, I
Not
don't
with the
think
signage.
that the failure of that one sculpture was
No.
due to intentional
I
vandalism.
agree.
So
I-
back to the, if we can go back to the sculpture signage, just to kind of clarify that. So is that my mic doing that?
I don't know, it's,
Popping there, but,
We're having issues with the actual speaker and monitor.
oh,
oh, okay,
I might need to go adjust the port.
okay. Thanks for being aware of that. So Robert's going to contact Reliable Artwork and Steel,
Hardware, yeah.
hardware, pardon, and kind of feel that out with
I
that.
will design something with them and get a price.
And then we'll get a report back from you on that and what their estimated
I
cost would
will
be.
give the information to John and he will circulate it. Because I'm a good boy.
Perfect, good listener too. So as far as putting on a stake, we'll just wait for more information and then we can make a firmer decision on the mounting part.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, John. And then the other side of that was the city signage piece, which I think we should postpone because that was something I was kind of spearheading, and where that was left is being in touch with DRB member
Lynn Diedler.
Lynn Diedler, and was there a third person to contact?
Was that for the sign group, Lars?
Just like the sign ordinance or. starting
Yeah, the
to
sign committee,
revisit that.
subcommittee.
Yeah.
It was Lynn and Christine Level.
Christine Level.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think if I were you, Lynn is your best point of contact.
Yeah, Lynn has-
Christine is impossible to get a hold of.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
I try all the time because I work with her professionally.
Okay.
So Lynn would be the way to start. And it was kind of he brought it to the DRB. It's his baby.
Okay, great, thank you for that. So more on that down the road. Other comments about 5E?
Yep, buddy.
What were you just discussing?
Oh,
City
okay.
signage and sculpture signage. Yeah.
so,
Okay.
yeah, I was thinking about that Cock Robin sign though, too,
Oh.
just for kicks,
Well, that
because,
might be part of the staff update,
oh,
We-
I'll wait then.
if they want to touch
because-
that. Okay, moving on to 5F, then site inventory. So this is just something I asked to be continued. something I've really been kind of pushing, and just a brief revisiting of what it would be. So it would be procuring one or more maps that the city currently already has, including, I think, the zoning map that exists, and having 2 members that are approved by the PAC to do an ad hoc hike, so to speak, in one or more areas of the city, particularly along the main thoroughfares, to identify not only sites that the city has control over, but even potentially private property that might have potential sites for public art. So that then we would have some kind of a map inventory to draw from.
Wow.
Comments about that or likelihood of that?
I'll go for a walk with you.
Fantastic. So then,
Not more than 6,000 steps.
well, that's your limit these days? That's probably negotiable. So first of all, John, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, as far as the zoning map goes, that's something that I can absolutely get to you guys. The scale of it, I just don't know how you want to. I mean, I can have it scaled up to a point where it's printable on, paper, but you're going to have a hard time seeing what the streets are unless you're absolutely familiar with the whole, city limits. Or I can kind of try and break it up into sections. And maybe, I don't know if this is something that one of the members of the ad hoc wants to come in and set up like half hour, an hour of time with me, and we can go through that map and create it. So I'm not doing the map 15 different times and you guys saying no. We can just do it in one fell swoop. I would be amenable to doing something like that.
Okay, I think that's a great idea, and I volunteer to come in and meet with you in order to do that.
Let me
Okay.
know. I'd come too.
Okay.
Yes, you guys, that's cool.
I have a sort of information item that's a reasonable segue from this question.
Okay,
well,
before we get to that, however.
Yeah, I have a comment about this. So I reached out to Jen Verts, who was on our committee in the past, about mural sites, which is her, one of her passions, and we talked about that. And so her response, she has a few mural sites she would like to see painted, but they're all private, private buildings. I know this was an issue for the PAC in the past, and I'm not sure if you've opened up options to allow public funds to be spent in this manner. So this was proposed in the past and, discouraged, I would say, from staff, or maybe even from the committee at the time. It was kind of a discussion a few years ago. So I just wanted to pass along that.
Well, I have a question then. If it's on private property, does the PAC/city have any requirements for whether it's painted over? I mean, is there any oversight other than the private property owner to having a?
We do have a small section in, I believe it's our sign ordinance, that relates to murals on private property, but it's very minimal. And it does not include any involvement from either the city or the PAC as far as, approving what goes on that,
So,
because it
So
is
any
private property.
Any private owner could paint a
right.
giant mural of whatever they want without city input.
There is, there is there is some guidelines on what it can and can't be, though. So if it's relatable to certain things, I'd have to pull that
You
section
mean
out.
content?
Yes.
Okay.
And does that come to this committee?
No.
Who does it go to?
If it's on private, it's possible that it could go to the design review board, but I'm not sure because it is part of the sign. I believe it's part of the sign ordinance. So
So the DRB.
yeah.
So in essence then was the controversy that we were using city or public funds to decorate somebody else's possession?
That was the,
Okay.
that was the issue.
Yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That's universal.
I think from my mind, one of the real qualifiers for pursuing something like that is the fact that there are very few city-owned sites with
Yeah.
full to majority control over them.
Mhm.
And as we've seen recently on the art supply building down at the Fork,
Mhm.
uh, see some really, really beautiful, impactful public art. So I definitely think it's something worth continuing to.
And how did that come about? Art and Soul said, I want to do a mural, and they went ahead and did a mural, and they fortunately did a good mural. Is that right?
Jen didn't tell you?
What? Jen was part of that?
I thought she was knowledgeable about that.
Yeah, I think you're right. But
I don't know the process myself, but
Well, was there a requirement that there be a design review of that mural?
No,
How come? Because it was private property? Or it is private property?
it didn't come to the DRV. I don't know.
Well, I wonder what the ordinance is then.
Well, can I ask a related question that relates to the information I wanted to give you? The Sebastopol Center for the Arts is putting out a call for sculptures with an agreement with Piazza to place those sculptures inside the chain link fence on the empty hotel site.
Oh, say that again? Now that I know who Piazza is?
The Sebastopol Center for the Arts is putting out a call for sculptures to place there, even though you would not be able to approach them because they would be within the chain link fence. So
Well,
a couple of things about
Is it,
that.
excuse me, is this prior to the hotel being built?
Yes. It would be a temporary installation.
temporary. Okay,
until
that makes a big
until the
difference.
hotel gets
I get
built.
it.
So something on the order of the CSG, and in the meeting I was in there with the visual arts team where we were discussing it, I said, well, you potentially have a significant problem about bases and mounting the sculptures, but it's less of an issue for them because they're fenced off and people can't go up and wiggle and shake them, but it's something that they'll need to deal with. A corollary question, which I said I would ask, is whether we would let them use our email lists that we used to seek sculpture submissions for the CSG. And the other question then is, do they need to submit anything about this project to anyone in the city?
It's private property, isn't it? Didn't they buy
Certainly
it?
is.
Yeah, is that the answer? That it's Piazza Hospitality that owns that and they can do whatever they wish with it?
John?
So I'll take a step back real quick because it might answer this question. I brought up the section that relates to murals and graphics. So, and I have it up on the screen here.
Right, we can read that.
Can you,
I'll read it out real quick.
and that
Yeah.
C, what, can you just give me the section?
Yes, it's 17.120.070, letter C. And number 1 says, wherein or any part of any mural or graphic may be considered signing by reason of the depiction or of specific words, symbols, merchandise, or services, such as mural or graphic, or part thereof, shall be subject to the regulations described in this chapter. Number 2 says, where a mural or graphic is not considered signage, as described as above, its size will not be included in determining compliance with the maximum allowed sign area for a property. So
That's it?
what that means is the mural, if it meets those requirements of number one, is counted towards their allowable signage on site. So the DRB is the review authority for signage, pirate signage on a site. So if there is a building that exceeds, if their mural exceeds what their allowable signage is, they would have to go to the DRB to have approval of that kind of mural, which in most cases is going to be large enough that it's likely going to exceed their allowable signage. There's a calculation on how we figure that out. I won't bore you in the details, but it is very easy to go over that allowed area. So in that regard, for murals that have, if it's related to some sort of signing, whether it's merchandise or whatever, would be counted towards the allowable signage for their property. If not, then it is not counted towards signage and they can kind of do whatever.
And there's therefore no review of content.
Correct.
Okay.
Wow, I'm surprised at that.
Makes sense to me. Makes total sense.
And as part of, because this is in the sign ordinance, and this kind of relates to the city signage, Jeff, your work with Lynn, this could be a section that is reviewed as far as, maybe updating it to include, depending on the signage or however the group wants to formulate, where the PAC could have some input in, the depiction of those murals, or change the mural section if it's not, if it's just a non-merchandising signage thing. If it's just a regular mural, it could have review from the Public Arts Committee. But
Okay, yes, and that's accessible through the city website?
correct, it's in our municipal code,
Great, thank you.
which is all, yes, it's all on the website.
Yeah, if you just Google City of Sebastopol sign ordinance, you'll get there pretty quickly.
Thank you. Even better.
Because I just did.
All right, super. Okay. But just so we don't get too far beyond our toes here, I'm assuming because we did the motion for the ad hoc on the opening prep with Barbara and myself, we need to do the same for the site inventory with Robert and myself.
Correct.
So we need to entertain a motion on that.
So I move that Jeff and I form a subcommittee in order to review sites, locations for future sculpture projects with staff.
Future artwork projects, no?
Artwork projects.
If murals are part of it. I'll second that motion.
Any discussion by the PAC or the public?
Not seeing anything from the public.
vote?
Committee Member Harris,
I,
Committee Member Langberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Brent,
Aye.
and Chair Stucker.
Aye.
All right, so the motion passes. So you guys have that ad hoc committee in
Can I
place.
suggest that you guys suggest some dates and times? I'm more flexible. You guys both work.
And I'm probably next flexible. So, John,
I'll reach out to the two of you.
okay.
Okay.
I'll send a reminder if needed.
Okay. We'll figure
So-
out something.
But I did ask a question in there about our email lists of sculptors. Does anybody have any thought about that?
Well, I just thought that
oh,
anything, with Sebastopol Arts, they rub our backs, we rub theirs. So
yeah,
I feel that we definitely, if it's kosher with the city, we need to be able to share that kind of information.
I agree. I think we're all in this together.
The more art, the better.
Staff, you have any comment on that? No?
I think they had a really good installation there for a while, and then were threatening to build, and then the installation went away, and then they didn't build.
Who?
Ned
Well,
Collin.
Ned put all of his.
It was like
maquettes
it was his prototype
yeah.
gallery for a good
Oh,
year and a
yeah.
half or 2
It sure
years,
was.
and it's sad to see it go.
So
Yeah.
Tori, theoretically, you would have access to those lists, and perhaps, John, you could guide her to those?
Yeah, I'll double check with you guys and see, and just make sure that that list is accurate.
Yeah.
I don't know where it lives, but
I'll bet Zuzi knows.
It's minimal.
unfortunately, Susie's not that available.
Yeah, I think they probably have their own list that,
They probably
is
do,
very
but
effective.
their reach is more regional than we were reaching,
Mhm.
so that's why I ask.
Yeah,
I may have it. I'll have
I,
to check
well,
and see.
actually, I was going to say, I think Susie may have sent it all.
Yeah, I think she did. I'll have to,
Oh.
if you would remind me, Robert, because I have
Or Margie
Here's
might
my-
might be a
yeah.
good
Well, Margie
person
might
to
have
ask.
it.
Yeah.
she's probably,
the only other thing that I would recommend, just because if something does start to go up on that site as far as artwork or whatever, I'm sure we're going to be getting questions from the city council. So either the chair or vice chair or one of the members of the PAC wouldn't mind, drafting a little letter or something like that that gives an update that I can share with.
This is the Art Center's project.
Oh, the art center. Okay.
Has nothing to do with us. So
Okay.
if there's communication, it's their problem.
Okay. Then that's fine.
I mean, I'm happy to suggest to them
I would.
that they let city council know.
I would suggest that as well.
Okay.
Because I know that if something does come up, it's going to come straight to us. And I just want to be able to be ahead of that rather than fumble around.
So next item is future agenda items, but as we get into that, I'd like to just confirm what we want on the next agenda, if we can.
Sure.
So members, please assist with this as needed. I'm going to pull up the.
Well,
agenda.
the two art openings.
Certainly an update on the planning for the two openings.
that's as far as we got, as far as I know. It's pretty minimal.
I mean, I trust the subcommittee will do great work, but I think we might want to reserve a good portion of that meeting for those, to really dial in the openings.
Yes, thanks. So we've got that then.
Yeah. So the update on the two openings is.
Yeah, Bruce
what I have.
Johnson opening first, please,
Okay.
followed by the Ned Con.
Do you want those as separate agenda items
Yes,
or?
separate,
Okay.
please, yeah. And then,
Theoretically, we will have had a meeting to look at maps
Mhm.
with staff.
and perhaps for those of us who are meeting with John and anyone else about maps, might also get some input into storm drainage.
Well,
Same
hopefully we
time.
could look at that map.
I'll do my best. I'll see what Eric's able to come up with. And like I said, if it may kind of shorten his workload if we have, sections of town
Well, we did
to
give you,
look
a-
at.
we did give you a list, so.
No, absolutely. But
And we could potentially just look at the one that's on the wall.
yeah, that is true.
Okay.
As raggled and taggled as it is, it's definitely,
Is what it is.
yeah,
Be in the museum.
But,
it definitely should be.
but we could take pictures of the sections of that that are of interest to
Sure.
us
Sure.
and work from that.
Yeah.
So then we also need just revisit the Johnson South entry side bench.
Mhm.
Can that be part of the opening discussion?
Well, hopefully it will already be installed, but we shall see.
It could be attached to the opening discussion. Yeah, as a sub item, for example, 5B number 1 or 2. And then we also, I'm assuming we need to revisit the sculpture signage in case there's any
Yes, we do.
updates on that.
Yes.
And there may also be an update on site inventory. And then I think the last item, unless there's another one that PAC brings up, should be the north entry, because I want to keep revisiting that, but I'm not sure how much, we're going to logically achieve with that in the March meeting with everything else on the agenda.
Yeah, I would propose
Just an update.
skipping a meeting on that, to them, putting that later on.
Okay.
It
Um,
doesn't feel like it's urgent, and
No.
we have all this other stuff to prepare for.
Okay, so then May agenda,
Mhm.
north entry.
And then were we including the storm drain as one of the items for next meeting?
I think that should be in,
Because I don't have, I
Well,
know we just
I'm
briefly
open to what other
discussed it,
members
but,
have to say. I think that could be attached to the site inventory.
okay. Just as like a sub,
Yeah,
item.
sub item.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. If anything else comes up, feel free to send us a message. So,
Okay. And then down number 6, agenda items for future meetings that haven't already been discussed.
I thought that's what we just did.
Yeah.
We're setting the
Well-
agenda for the next meeting.
We did.
Okay.
But I'm just bringing up, there's anything new people had been dreaming about that they wanted to suggest, that's all. So then, planning report.
Sure. So I briefly mentioned it earlier. The new schedule going forward for the Public Arts Committee is that we will be meeting on a alternating, every other month schedule, same time, same place, unless the need for a special meeting, which we would have to coordinate with all of those involved. As some of you have met already, Tori, we have a new planning technician in place who is taking over for Zuzi. She has been here for 2 weeks now, so she's still trying to learn everything. But she's doing a great job, and hopefully I'll be able to work with her to work with the rest of the pack to help you guys all out with the either agenda items or information that you may need that I know Zuzi was doing. And then if there's anything that you were communicating with Zuzi in the past about that I may or may not have known about, it would be helpful so that there's no broken line of communication there. I don't know if she was working on any items or requests that individual members of the PAC may have had. So that would be helpful because like I said, I don't want to drop the ball.
She'd done some work on some website updates and edits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she was able to get to all of them
Okay.
on the PAC pages.
Okay.
So that's something, it's not urgent, but something that may eventually you could attend to. The other piece, a big piece of what Zuzi helped the PAC with was the PR.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest piece for Tori to really
Okay.
feel comfortable with and know where all the information is
Yeah.
and all the contacts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last update that I have is next week for the January 21st City Council City Council meeting. We have the interview for the open PAC position. Gavin Waters is our one individual that applied for that. His interview is the very first one, 5 p.m. And then the appointments are later on in the meeting. So if any of the members of the PAC are wanting to either attend that meeting or watch it virtually, I would encourage you to do so. And then we will also be having the rest of the boards and commissions. So the Planning Commission has 2 interviews, and then the Design Review Board has 3 interviews. So that's typically we try to get these done in December, kind of end of November, December, but with scheduling and stuff like that, it got pushed out a little bit further. So
So just to reiterate that, January 24th, 5 PM.
21st at 5 p.m.
21st.
Yep.
Can I ask a
21st.
question, John?
Yeah.
Lars, your term isn't up on the design review board, is it?
No,
Good, okay.
another year.
Yeah.
Just one more.
The end of this, the end of
Every-
this year is
every
when
2
his
years.
his
Yeah,
term.
Jen,
Yeah.
fiscal years, June?
No, they're
Oh,
calendar years.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, so that's coming up soon. So hopefully, if Gavin is appointed for our March meeting, you will be able to. He will be hopefully seated, and we'll have finally a 5th member on the PAC that's been vacant for some time now.
Just curious, is there a criteria for membership that a potential member is expected to meet? That's question 1. Number 2 is there any input from PAC current membership with regard to a new member?
As far as the criteria, there is on the application, I believe, and also in the formation of the PAC, as far as its membership goes, there's, I don't know if it's categories or if it's numbers, but there is the requirements for some
look
sort
at-
of art background or, something related to the group. And then as far as the input goes, not for the interviews or appointments component of it, but if you wanted to make a public comment during the council meeting, you can make a public comment as a member of the public.
Yeah, as I remember it, 3 of the PAC roles or members are supposed to be artists or have some kind of art, and that's 2 of you and was Margie's position.
Yeah.
I'm still the at-large, as you can tell from my upper
Wasn't
body,
there one
but
connected to the,
Lars is
wasn't
still looking
there
for it.
one who needed to be connected to the center? The art
Well,
center?
that is the design, the Arts Center? I don't think so.
I don't think it's connected to the art center. It's
No, 'cause
which is
that's-
Lars's position, which is
Yeah.
connected to the design review board.
No,
Okay.
'cause that's too limiting.
The DRB appoints that
I can't-
that member to this group.
we can look at the application too online.
Yeah.
Member. Thank you, John.
And that's all I have, unless you guys have any other questions.
Go ahead, Jeff, ask him. Or no, you were going to ask him about the
I was
cock,
gonna
the
ask
cock
about
robin.
that sign, the whole thing.
Did you want to revisit that? Can you give us any update on that, or you? were kind of-
So the Barlow is going through a master sign program update. The Cock Robin sign that was originally installed and then taken down and replaced. They are providing updates to their master sign program, so that sign will be part of the review, because the signage that they had on the building had exceeded what is normally allowed, and the design review board denied their request. And so what they came up with is they were going to update that sign program, because it's been, the last time it was updated was, I think, 2015 or 2016. So there's some changes that have happened in the Barlow around their signage and stuff like that. So some buildings kind of got larger, and the way that they had their square footage numbers of buildings as it related to allowable signage has changed over the years. So they are looking at updating that to be more in compliance with.
Are they looking at allowing electronic signs?
I don't believe so, but I'm not too
'Cause
sure.
Of course, the art center has one, but it's in the county, but the fire department has one.
Yes, so state agencies like schools, fire departments, the art center is one of them. They are exempt from our sign ordinance. So that came up when the art center installed their electronic sign.
Well, yeah, we had to get approval from the county.
Yeah.
But didn't Hopmonk just get a approved sign?
Correct.
It's
They-
electronic?
Yes.
Hopmonk?
Oh,
They went through the
right.
sign exception portion for our design review board. So
So is there some kind of a deadline for the Barlow sign compliant, or sign review document to be presented to the city?
no, so they have started their application. They just haven't submitted their full package yet. And then once that's submitted, it'll go to the design review board for review.
So meanwhile, that sign just stays there until all that's completed?
So did they appeal? They appealed our decision. From the DRB denied their
Right.
signage,
Correct.
and so they appealed, and now they agree. I guess
They withdrew the appeal to
develop.
rather than go through that component of it, because there wasn't, staff still couldn't support the appeal request. And we recommended that they just update their sign program, which would allow, some of the extra signage that they did install.
But they don't have to take it down. They can keep
Correct.
what they
Yeah.
have while they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Is the Barlow Hotel moving along?
Yeah, so that is a project that I am not working entirely
right.
on.
Jane.
Yes, so our previous interim director, Jane Riley, who you met a couple in meetings ago, she works for Four Leaf, and the city entered a contract for her to work on that project. There are hopefully going to have a joint DRB and PC meeting sometime in February, and then try to get to city council sometime in March, as it's a development agreement for the Barlow Hotel. So there's a lot of information in there. The development agreement is kind of similar to what the Hotel Sebastopol went through as far as like their fees and scope of the project and things like that. So they're trying to get through that part of it so that they can hopefully start construction
And
shortly.
is Kenyon still their consultant?
I don't believe Kenyon is working with them anymore,
too
but
bad.
I don't
He
know.
was our advocate with them. Have they said anything about how they intend to deal with the 1%?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm not working on it, so I don't have any total input. I know that when Jane had, when we had discussed this earlier, she wasn't an advocate for exempting them from that, but
Well, I'll ask Kenyon how we can lobby.
okay.
And what about the Hotel Sebastopol? Is there an update on this?
Nothing new on that. I think that they're still waiting for rates to kind of drop down a little bit further, and hopefully sometime soon.
Thank you, everybody. So I'd like to move to adjourn this meeting to March 11th, the next meeting to March 11th.
Thank you.
Out there to make a motion.
Thank you, Jeff.
You did pretty good here.
Yeah, good sharing, sir.
Not bad.
As long as you don't try and shut us up.
Recording stopped.
Really, he's very polite, very polite.